3 and 4 and.
But they all have got to memorise everything, all of the cues, and all of it's quite complex in as much as the tempi is changing a lot, the time signatures are changing a lot. And I think that this is one of the biggest lessons perhaps that the LSO players have learnt as well, because they turn up for the first rehearsal and their printed part is put on the music stand for them and away they go. The blind players, who didn't get a chance to see their music beforehand either, had to sit there and read the first few lines of the music, figure out how to play it on their instrument, and then play it in the rehearsal.
That's real LSO land, really. You know, you spend a lot of time in orchestras dealing with the strings going up and down. Only two choices, but it takes a remarkably long time.
This whole part of our project, working with the London Symphony Orchestra, originally was to provide an opportunity for everybody to learn about the instruments in the orchestra, how they work, get to talk to really top players and find out just how much they could demand from a player when they were composing their own music. And so my idea to concentrate on writing music for screen, the fact that all of our participants are visually impaired didn't ever enter my mind, because I can't see a barrier to visually impaired composers writing music for film. And because there were various performances of Stravinsky in the LSO's concert programme, including The Soldier's Tale, it was Howard's suggestion to look at the way that The Soldier's Tale had been written and take that format for everybody to create their own story as a collaborative idea, and then each to write their music.
Basically, The Soldier's Tale is a theatrical piece with a script and music that they were written together. The story is about a soldier who comes home from the wars, and on his way back to his home village meets the devil, who does a deal with him and gives him a magical book with powers. And the ideas that we took away from The Soldier's Tale was the idea of objects having power. And several characters arose as well, the princess, for example. And I think that really was where the links ended, because everyone came up with their own short stories which they wanted to write music for. And we realised as we worked through that we could actually bring a central group of characters into every one of those stories, which is how the script arose as it did.
Shall we play Kevin's music? All right. Kevin, would you like to just count us in?
Sorry, I'm not exactly... What piece is it?
Bloodstone music, G minor.
Oh, it's a G minor.
Which I think is your music, is that right?
Yeah. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Could that be a G below, please?
So we're kind of throwing you in the deep end because we haven't given you a chance to actually look at... Have you got the music there, Kev, for this? Or
There's no bar numbers on this.
I'll play along so that we've got some structure in our heads.
Yeah,
Here you go. 116. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4.
When was talking about the story and how it developed and how there was this sense of pride and there was this sense of power in the Bloodstone, I just thought, this music kind of suits it really. It has that kind of, mystery to it. And then it was like, just thinking about the orchestration and so on, I just thought of adding maybe the harpsichord because it has this kind of old kind of Spanish feel in the way the chords play around.
Let's see if we can get a harpsichord sound.
I have to change it because
Here we go. In fact, that's the piano button and the one underneath it's the harpsichord. So that's harpsichord above it, grand piano.
Right, so let me just check out so that I can change it quickly.
Yeah, that's it. And if you want to have a lot of fun, the other buttons there are all the other electric pianos.
And strings.
So when you want to mess around later, you can just play. Bit of vibraphone with the church organ.
You may live to regret that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because for this part, must have written down that.
By the side of a long and dusty road, a girl sits all alone. She wears dirty clothes and is wrapped in a blanket, just as grief wraps round her heart.
It's an odd experience writing music for film, especially because I used to be able to see, so I'm aware of what kind of things would be happening on screen, and it's very frustrating for me sometimes if I'm sat there, if someone presents me with a short film and says, musically, what would you do with this? I have to ask them about 150 questions about what's actually going on so that I can really get a feel for the cinematography of the thing, or any subtle things that are going on, the colours that are on the screen, because I use that to inform the kind of music I'm going to write. If it's got bright colours, I write music which is very colourful. But it's not really, I've never seen it as an obstacle, because for instance, I can't rely on, I can't see the screen. And because I can't see the screen, the music plays a big part in it for me. The music can tell me things that I can't get off the pictures.
I think music is very kind of subjective, and that's something that's really good about it. So I think that you could play anyone a bit of music and tell them that it was about a certain thing, and they would kind of form their own visual images, like a book or something like that. Before, when I could see, I couldn't read music anyway. So obviously getting my ideas down onto a score for everyone else to play was an interesting experience, because I'd never had to do that before.
Can you play that again? We didn't quite get all the notes down.
I don't like the composer being in control. Sia, was there anything else that you wanted?
This bit. The two violins, so we're going to do that one bit.
And do you want me to play this? Is it with pizzicato or with the bow? With arco?
Oh, I think it's pizzicato.
Shall we have a little learn of that, actually? Because in fact it's in sixths.
Yeah, pretty much.
2, 3, 4.
Jumps the impossible distance, flying straight towards his brother. The princess runs forward, pushes her father out of the way. Her uncle lands on the floor, dropping the knife. The guests pile on top of him. He fights them off and runs away, snarling. The princess tries to run after him, but he's too fast. She stops for breath. But I grew up with my uncle. What happened to bring him back to us? She asks the stone. Images fall in rapid succession, as though the stone is trying to show her many things at once. Her uncle was playing cards, and always winning. He was drinking heavily. She tried fighting with people, all the while he carried the stone.
So Kevin, are you going to play this bit?
Can I go over there and do the piano, and then maybe I'll show you how?
Sorry, Charles.
So 6, I've got nothing.
I'm not quite sure how.
I've been at 209.
What rhythm are you playing at 209?
Okay.
really complicated because it's all triplets. And it's supposed to be 12/8 really.
Yeah.
In 12/8 it would be a different question. Dum, da, dum. It's supposed to be bum ba dum dum. Yeah. So dum da dum dum da dum. So would that be dum da dum? That dotted. It is dotted quaver.
Semi. Bum, ba-bum.
Dotted semi, then demi-semi, isn't it? Yeah, dotted semi, demi-semi.
Yeah.
Then dum da dum. Yeah, and then quaver rest.
Yep.
And then downbeat. Howard, I think we've got the rhythm written down. I think.
Let's try and do it by ear first and see if we can...
Well, I know the piece and we've written it down, so we don't need to.
Sorry?
I know the piece anyway because I do know what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
And we've got it down here if that would save a bit of time.
Okay.
Do you want to just I don't know? Do you want to just show it to Howard? Is that the easiest thing
First 2 beats, and then the third beat's going to be changed to this, which is a triplet grouping. So it's quaver, semi.
It's fine. I think we just need to do it like that.
Yep.
Bum ba dum. Bum.
You can put a pause on that though.
That's
Yeah.
Ba 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 da ba da.
I think it's da da dum.
Very secret squirrel,
Dum da
Kevin.
dum.
Very secret squirrel.
Ba ba dum.
Do you know that
Dum
cartoon?
da
series?
dum. No, I think it's dum da dum. I think it's just an old dotted groove actually.
Well, especially the jazzy bit's been causing kind of a lot of problems because kind of having a lot of debate about how to write that down because they're like, oh, how shall we play like this little section, and some people play it a lot very differently and so on, and because they're orchestral musicians, they naturally, I mean, they want it written accurately and so on, and yeah, we've been having kind of been thinking how to notate this and so on.
As the princess gazes into the stone, days and nights seem to pass in which the baby lay still. The mother, father, and uncle still working together, tending her. The princess has no notion of how much time had passed. But finally, she sees herself awaken.
Takashi, another winner.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's how to make £1 million in the West End.
Before that, you have. This is maybe 2 notes thread.
2 and 2.
2 and 2. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I like that better.
As you say, Takashi, I think it's more elegant. Yeah.
Takashi, were you alright with the change at the end? Because obviously the change to the minor was
Yes.
something tagged on to get us into the next section.
Oh, I'm happy with that.
Okay, fine.
I can't tell you what a big shock it was to me, because we'd only just come home from the training school, and 3 or 4 days later we'd got 3 days of workshops with the LSO down at the St Luke's, and the guide dogs training instructors came with me to make sure he was settled in, because they thought perhaps the instruments might upset him, and the musicians were rehearsing and he just laid down and wagged his tail and enjoyed the music. So they said to me, fine, you know, we'll go off and leave you, he seems happy with that. Until, well, as you know, first lot of applause, and he started barking in a really fierce cutting bark. And I was quite shocked, because my previous guide dog hardly ever barked a half a dozen times in all the years I had him.
What happens if you hum something very close, like a semitone or a tone, away from the note you play?
Shadow doesn't like that much.
Let's go with the fifth. I think we'll go with the fifth. We don't want to upset Shadow too much.
I don't know. It was a real shock, and quite frankly, although I was desperate to have a new dog, and I'd waited somewhat 5 or 6 months from when my other dog retired to when I started training with him, inevitably, when you have a very young dog, and he was very young when I first had him, he's only 18 months old, which is quite young for a guide dog, that in itself has been quite stressful for me. When you've got a young dog that you've got to keep on top of all the time, when you've got the stressful work to do, deadlines to meet, and tricky negotiations to make, and all of that kind of thing, you know, you've got an additional concern at the back of your mind all the time. Can I take this dog into this rehearsal, or this concert, or this meeting, or this conference? And is he going to bark?
With the percussion. It'll be easy. I'll give you. It'll be easy for you.
She sees her uncle staring into the dark bloodstone. He resisted taking it, as she can see the strain that it was now placing him under. He started gambling once more, but without the bloodstone's corrupt aid, lost heavily, and borrowed vast sums from dangerous men. Her father was anxious to help.
Do you want to make that very clear to us all, the whole possibility of bass texture?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the same register with trombone, what is with the silly, because the bass is here, so I could play. So it's sort of schoolboy error.
Yeah, I was thinking
playing high. I could play, of course. But there has to be some reason to do that. So.
No, I was thinking maybe you doing the lower octave to double with the trombone. But you know this little section where it's the first cue, bar 270, what is it?
I could start that, for example.
No, I was thinking of just the violin by itself, first violin by itself doing that.
Right at the very beginning.
Yeah. Octave higher.
Oh, this could be interesting. That's my whole life. Do you want, I can.
So can you see my hand? So I'll raise my hand when I want you to stop speaking.
To stop?
No. No, let me think.
Bloodshot locked up the dagger in the attic chest. Yeah. So his brother was more obsessed by the bloodstone. He locked up the dagger in the attic chest. The two stones must never be separated again. However, he had to do something. The moonstone showed her father keeping watch outside a large house. The image changed. A car came hurtling down the road towards the house. The father ran inside to warn his brother, but his brother climbed out through a window and fled the scene, leaving her father to the mercies of the house's owner.
You don't want Don Giovanni violins. Exactly. Yeah.
The princess now sees her father keeping watch outside a large house. The image changes. Her uncle was inside the house, breaking open a large safe. Again, the image changes. A car was hurtling down the road towards the house. Her father ran inside. He searched for his brother to warn him, but his brother had already fled. He made to leave, but came face to face with the owner of the house and two grim-looking men.
It's just how much music can really express, you know, like dialogue can only go as far as well as the images, and I think what's really crucial to a film is to allow the audience to imagine as well. I mean, part of it, like, you know, going to the cinemas, that kind of surround sound experience, and the music kind of adds to that and gives the atmosphere, and you could, from the script, you know, you can gain a lot, and from the dialogue as well, and if somebody tells you what's happening and what the music's meant to portray, it's not as hard as people might think to actually compose the music.
The opportunity to learn from players of such experience, just little things, the kind of language they use, the way they talk to each other, the kind of respect that they all have for each other. Lots of little things, I think, in the long term, they will remember and have a greater impact on them, even than the excitement of doing the performance. Of course, that will be the pinnacle of this part of the project for them. But I think in the long-term future, just the experience of sitting next to a double bass player who plays in the London Symphony Orchestra, or the clarinet player, and just having a cup of tea or sandwich at lunchtime with them. And I can't say any more than the fact I think that they're just completely overwhelmed and thrilled with the whole experience.